So when you entered high school, the supplies that you guys had, because you said in elementary school you guys got the supplies from the Caucasians had, was there like a noticeable difference in the supplies? And did you also feel like you look up to your elementary school teachers quite a lot? Being around more Caucasian teachers, was there any, were they dismissive at all with you, or was there somewhat of like a level of respect?
I do not think that personally, I do not recall having a single teacher that I felt was dismissive toward me. I observed them being dismissive toward some of my friends. My sisters that had gone before me, and my brother that had gone before me, they've kind of paved the way, right? In terms of, okay, here's the younger brother coming in. And, my records that went before me said, okay, this is a very good student. And so I was placed in the classes with all the top Caucasian students from the time I was in the 7th grade to the time I graduated from high school. So I do feel like I had wonderful teachers. I can't think there was a single teacher, a single Caucasian teacher that I had that I did not feel they had a pretty high expectation from me. And that, they wanted me to learn. They want to see me do well. I believe that. I remember a lot of them. I remember them. And they really, really pushed, and they wanted me to compete. And I can't see there was a single one. Not one.
Well, do you remember what like the breakdown was? What percentage would you, if you had to guess, of students that went to your high school were African American? How many were Caucasian? Would you say?
I would say that maybe 15%, no more than 20 African American. I don't think it was no more than 20%, which would be high. What I was trying to do, I was trying to look at it from the standpoint of the number of blacks that was in my graduating class, okay, to say, okay, would that be representative of how many's in the school? And with a fairly small class, I forget 120 or 30 some, and there may have been 20 or 30 some blacks in my class. I didn't have many blacks in my classes, right? Because it was mostly, it'd only be maybe 4 or 5 blacks. And it'd be the same 4 or 5 that we had all our classes together with the top academic group.
So the teachers, do you remember the credentials that the teachers had in high school and in junior high?
Yeah, again, back then, that little community had, I believe it had a real commitment to education. And there had been a lot of individuals that were from that community that went off to college and that came back to teach. And so they were really, I think, devoted to the community, to the school. It was their alma mater, and to the students. And so, they all, were very well trained in their subject matter. We didn't have, like, for example, now you go to these schools and you have, somebody studied something else teaching math. We didn't have, everybody was certified, in their subject area, right? I remember my 7th and 8th grade science teacher. Never will forget her, Mrs. Lively, right? Mrs. Lively had never been married. Mrs. Lively was devoted to one thing outside of her mom, and that was her students and teaching us. I never forget how hard she made us work and how hard she taught. I remember Miss Danner. She was my math teacher, I think, in the 7th and 8th grade. Her husband had died fairly young. He had been a principal, I believe. Her kids were gone. So what did she have? She had her students. And now I can realize now how focused she was in terms of teaching. I remember Mrs. Fox. She was an English teacher, and the first teacher I was afraid of because she came in just laying down the law, and y'all probably not gonna pass, and all y'all gonna fail. But she wasn't as hard as but she was tough. And I remember when she was teaching us the parts of speech and how to diagram sentences and so forth, and it just rigorous. The class was rigorous. So that's what I remember in junior high. And in high school, I remember, I can't think, it was Mr. Howard, I think. I had Miss Howard in English. Mr. Maynard. Mr. Maynard was my chemistry and physics teacher. He taught at West Virginia Institute of Technology. He taught that class, and he taught that class like we were in college. I mean, he lectured, right? He didn't care if you took notes or not. I mean, he said, look, this is chemistry, this is physics, you better want to learn it, right? And so I thought I had great teachers, and they were committed. I felt they were committed to us learning. Now again, I will say this, I believe that my experience was different from a lot of my friends, because I believe I benefited from being in the class with the doctors and the lawyers and the accountants' children, right? And I think all those teachers knew that those people expected them to be on their game. So I think I benefited from that. I don't think some of my peers that were in other classes that didn't have, and now that I think about it, we didn't have all the same teachers. So I didn't realize, now that I think about it, for all the same subjects. So it's obvious to me that the students that were in what they call the ones, literally they put you in 7-1, 7-2, 7-3, and 7-4. So 7-1 was the top kid, 7-2 was next, 7-3, if you had enough to, there'd be a 7-4. No, at least 3, sometimes 4. I don't think they can legally do that today. They got to do it a different way. They got to call the class something and let you opt out by taking a class that may be an advanced class or college level class, or if you're in high school. So that's what I'm trying to do. It's always about race and about class, right? It's becoming more about class now, but it's still also about race. But it's always been about race and class. And if you are able to get closer to the upper class, then there are some benefits that you get just by being a part of the upper class, you see? Mm-hmm. So
when Brown versus Board came out 1953, I believe, or
54.
54, okay. So you were...
I wasn't born.
Yeah, you weren't even born yet. So, but you did, you said that the civil rights kind of had its peak when you were still in school.
Yeah, I think civil rights movement peaked when I was 12.
Okay.
In 1968, when Martin Luther King died, April 4th, 1968.
Can you talk about that experience, like as you were growing up to being 12, and even in high school after maybe it started to dwindle a little bit?
Yeah, as I said before, we were watching stuff on television. So you guys don't understand, right? There wasn't 150 channels when I was growing up, right? If you had a television when I was growing up, you got one channel really good, and you may have been able to get a second channel if you had rabbit ears on your television, or an antenna on top of your house. So the television, everybody watched the same thing. So we watched the news, we watched what was going on. So, we was watching things that were shown on television about the civil rights movement. We were watching news specials. So we knew what was happening in Mississippi, what was happening in Alabama, and what was happening in Georgia. And we knew how badly African American people were being treated. And we were certainly hoping it wasn't going to come to us, because it got close enough in parts of Virginia and that type of thing. So we knew that these things were happening, and we also was expecting that some change was going to happen. Some changes was going to take place. Because we didn't know the brutal, the horrific type of discrimination and treatment that people in the Deep South was experiencing. Because we didn't challenge anything. We really didn't challenge much, right? We may have experienced some of that had we challenged, though, we accepted segregation. We accepted segregated housing. We accepted segregated schools, right? We accepted not being able to eat in certain places, not being able to go in certain. We just accepted it. So we weren't really kind of challenging it. And had it been challenged, and because the black population in West Virginia was so small in most places, that the economy of scale was not there to really challenge something as strong as it could have been challenged. They did there in Charles. They challenged something. They challenged Woolworth to desegregate the lunch counter. They challenged to desegregate Rock Lake Pool. So there were some marches and demonstrations that took place in Charleston, and some things, there was some confrontation, but not where I was raised at. But we were hopeful that, the change would happen, right? But we didn't really know what would it really mean for us. We didn't have any money. So it wasn't like we could live in a different neighborhood if they would let us. We couldn't buy the house if the house was available to be sold to us. I guess it was just different. As we looked at it, I was not miserable as a child. So I wasn't miserable. Like I said earlier, it didn't really bother me that I couldn't go to school with white kids. That didn't bother me. It didn't bother me that I had to sit up in the balcony. I didn't stew over that. I could go to the movie theater, I could watch the same movie. So certain things, I guess you accommodate to and you accept. I think it was harder for our parents because they had been denied significant opportunities for employment. They've been relegated, right, to the lower rung of the social economic ladder. And now that I look back at it, I can see some of the frustration that some of the adults had, right, who were denied certain jobs in the coal mines, for example, even though they had the skill to do a higher paying job. We give the most dangerous jobs in the coal mines. And so now that I look back, I think that they had a greater frustration, but as kids, we were able to do the things that we wanted to do. And so we were sheltered, I think, from some of the really more harsh realities, of segregation that maybe our parents had not been sheltered from.
Okay, thank you.